Hello everyone, welcome back to my top 100 list. Today we are starting the top half of the list. We are going from 50 through to 41. So without further ado, let's kick things off with some brilliant games. My number 50 is a tile placement game that can work really well from really low player counts like 3 people all the way through to 8. It gets chaotic, it gets crazy, it's super simple to explain, and that's Tsuro. In this game you are basically playing one of your tiles from your hand. You have like a choice of 3. You play it in front of your piece onto this gridded board and you follow the line. Now at the start of the game you're at the edge and you're just going to wiggle a little bit onto the board on that tile. The next tile you place, you'll wiggle a bit further. But as the game goes on, these tiles are going to start intersecting. And it means that when you place a tile, you'll follow it to the edge of that and then carry on because there's another tile already there and you have to go to the end of the path. You're trying to make it so that it's harder for your opponents to place tiles without sending themselves off the board, while probably trying not to bump into each other, because that normally means you're both being sent off and then you're out for the round. Now I don't like player elimination too much, but Tsuro is such a quick game, it's also quite fun to watch. By the time you're eliminated, at least half the board is covered with tiles and it's only going to be a very quick game for everyone left. There's also a nice thing of when the deck of tiles runs out, the next player that would draw gets this special tile, and then if someone gets knocked out, their tiles become available again. You start drawing first, and I like that. I think that's a really good idea to sort of just mean that those tiles that eliminated players, or not eliminated tiles, sorry, they're not wasted. They can still be used in the game, because then the board will always be filled and someone will always come out, well, mostly someone will come out of it as a victor. I think there's potentially a chance where everyone loses still, maybe then 2 joint winners. But a really fun game, super simple, of literally place this tile in front of you, follow the sort of squiggly line until you get to the edge of a tile or off the edge of the board. That is how simple it is. Stay alive for as long as possible and you win. Super simple, and the artwork of the original, I really like that sort of red colouring, the sort of phoenixy look. I've played one of the sequels, the seafaring one. I liked it. I didn't like the krakens or whatever it was they tried to put on it. Just that basic play is just so much fun, and that's what I'd like this game to be when it hits the table. That's Tsuro. My number 49 is Junk Art. It is one of my favourite dexterity games that can be played with anyone and with very little setup. Half of the game modes, because the thing about this is you pick a number of location cards and each one of those, say it's like London or Toronto or something like that, each one of these named modes is a slightly different puzzle. Maybe you're building up on your own little platform. In another one, everyone's building on a central one. One is who can get the highest is going to get points. Another one is just screw someone else over by saying, right, you're playing this, you've got to add this to your pile. All of the shapes are weird and wonderful. They somehow balance. They somehow just squeeze on without tipping over. You just manage to add that one block or ball or bucket thing on the top of this column and you become the highest. The fact that there's the different modes, it means it's super fresh. You can even make your own ones up. And it's just one that as soon as it hits the table, yes, you can go, all right, we need to play this mode. This is the rules for this. 30 seconds and then everyone's playing, and often you're just tipping all of the bits and pieces, the different shapes and coloured shapes in the middle. They're just piled up in the middle. Everyone's got their little platform, unless there's a platform in the middle that everyone's building on. So it's super quick, and it's just that fun of things falling down like Jenga, but with sort of that weird junk art sort of vibe with the different shapes and such. And when someone pulls something off, even if it means you're losing, normally you're like, wow, yeah, fair play, that's fantastic. And that is what sort of atmosphere you want from a dexterity game like this, that works so well with like at family game night, or just like at the end of like a dinner party-ish sort of thing with friends or family, when you're like, let's play a simple game. No one's wanting to move around much, but you can just sit there, build, have a bit of a talk, chat, and a lot of fun when stuff starts falling. That is junk art. My number 48 is Sheriff of Nottingham. I'm not a huge fan of the artwork of the second edition, but the gameplay, and I've got the original edition, so I'm very happy with the artwork. The gameplay is phenomenal because it's all that perfect bluffing and trying to smuggle good and bad things past the sheriff. Each round, someone new becomes the sheriff. You are then putting some good cards into your little wallet thing that you clip closed, and you put it in front of them and say, that's 4 apples. Now, they can go, okay, I believe you, and let it through. Maybe you've smuggled, actually, 4 apples through, but maybe you've put a bit of bread in there. Maybe you've put some of those naughty spice cards in that you're not allowed, the contraband stuff. Maybe you've managed to get a golden apple past the sheriff. But maybe they've chosen to open it and found out that you were lying. Well, you have to pay a penalty and you don't get the stuff. Or if they open it and you were telling the truth, it's only the good stuff, they pay you a fine. Throw in the fact that you're bluffing this, so you start going, I'll give you a coin not to open it. And then they're like, well, it's maybe not worth the risk, I'll just take the coin. Or you say, I'll give you a coin to open, that person's over theirs. And it starts to really work. You have to get into that mindset of like, let's try and get something past you, rather than just sort of be honest, because the game will fall flat at that point. But when you start sort of going, I'll pay the sheriff, I'll pay you to open their bag, it gets a lot interesting, because then next round they're probably going to try and screw you back, but maybe you're telling the truth. It's really good fun. The sort of the level of you want to collect like the most apples, because then you get some bonus points and stuff like that. So there's that, and then if you can smuggle through that contraband, it's worth so much more than just the general stuff like cheese and whatever. So it puts a positive sort of oomph behind trying to lie. You can still probably get away with not lying in this game, but that's not really where the fun is. But for me, I've always enjoyed Sheriff of Nottingham when it's hit the table. My number 47 is a hidden movement-ish game, and that's because in Stop Thief, well, no one's actually doing the hidden movement. It's an app that does the hidden movement. Yes, I believe there are now ways that you can get around that, different modes that you can play via the app and different things, but in Stop Thief, you are chasing down and trying to determine and deduce where this thief is. An alarm goes off. It's in one of the 4 stores on the board. And then they move. You hear some footsteps. Okay, they've moved inside a building. You hear a door creak. Okay, so they started on an alarm, then they've walked inside, then they've gone through a door. Okay, I'm not hearing outside. They've gone inside again. But they can't go back on themselves, these thieves, at least not at the lower difficulties. So you're like, okay, so it started, and every player around the table is trying to deduce it at the same time, because it's a race to catch the thief. So you're trying to work out where on this map it could be. Maybe then you hear an outside, and what? I thought they were in the middle of the building. Oh, I've got to rework out where they were. So, right, what was it? And you get little hints. Your cards, some of them have little powers. Maybe you get a hint of which building they were in, or you get sort of a little bit of information, maybe the number that it starts with. But, all the places are numbered like 151, and you're like, it starts with a 1. So you're like, okay, it's one of these. It's in this area. And then there's cards where it's like huge movement to get you across the board. And it's all that risk of, all right, I'm going to get to that space because I think they're there, and try and arrest them. fingers crossed, because you're never in. Well, you can get certain, but certainly at the beginning of each round, if you take a punt, you're not sure, but you could be lucky and get the money for that arrest. So you're sort of bounty hunters in sort of a stop thief sort of universe. It's really fun, and it's a very different game, app driven, which some people don't like, but I think this one does it so well that it doesn't really draw away from that board in the middle. It's not one of those games where it could have all been on the app, because you're focused on the board so much, and it's just the sounds that the app's making, and then sort of putting your code in to say, I'm on this space, I'm arresting at this space, am I right? So it doesn't take away from the board game. Anyway, that is Stop Thief. My number 46 is a game which is just there on the shelf. It's not going to be on everyone's list, and that's Catan. My version up here is Catan 3D. It is absolutely glorious when it hits the table. It looks fantastic. It's not for everyone. It's huge luck of the dice. Yes, you can manipulate things. You can get try and get to a better location. You can screw other people over. Some of those development cards allow you to go, I'm after wood. Everyone must give me their wood. Everyone must give me their sheep, or something like that. It's a simple, easy to play game. You can sit down, play it for a little bit of time, sort of, an hour, hour and a half, depending on if you've got some expansions in there, and you can just chill. You can chat, roll the dice, have maybe a little bit of food on the side, and not really pay too much attention, apart from when you pray that the dice roll the numbers that you want. Yes, it's got the frustration of when the dice don't go your way, and you can feel screwed over by the game. You can really feel like everyone else is getting cards. I'm sat here with one. I've had one card for like 5 turns. On my turn, I roll the dice. Everyone else gets something but me. And that is frustrating. But for the way you can just get it on the table and play it and just sort of enjoy the environment that you're chatting and playing at the same time, that's what I like Catan for. And the fact that the 3D version just looks fantastic certainly doesn't help. Hurt, even. My number 45 is a big CMON game that I backed on Kickstarter. Not every Kickstarter is bad. In this case, yes, it came with a stupid amount of extra minis. Actually, though, I've actually used quite a few of them. It's got different decks that you can add in to add these different monsters in. It's Rising Sun. Now, this game is set in sort of a Japan-y sort of place where you are fighting with these insanely cool miniatures. Each faction, each clan's got their own thing. One can just move around, and that's just, you're like, that's insane for what is an area control fighting sort of game that they can just bounce around. But then another one has strongholds where you deploy your troops that can move and join the fight. And each clan has this thing where it's like, that seems really good, that seems really broken. But it's how you exploit it throughout the game that either makes it sort of an okay power or a fantastic power. Throw in the fact that you go to these shrines and get these cool, massive miniatures that join you in the fights. It's a really interesting system, the fights as well, because you're going to try and sort of win these different locations, but sometimes you don't care if you lose, because you go into the battle and you bid on the, I'm going to lose, but I get a point for everything killed. And then it's like, well, I still want to win, but they're going to get loads of points. You can sort of get Ronin recruits that you can throw in as extras to boost your battle score. And I've not even touched on the fact that in this game you are massively making up alliances sort of for a round. I wish there was more to it, but it still drives a really cool thing with backstabbing your opponent, because one of the actions betrays them, and it's super powerful when you do. It's never done at the start of a round, but towards the end of a round, if that tile is available, it looks very nice to do, because normally when you do something, your ally gets a bonus. So at the start of the round, oh, I'm going to do this, so my ally gets to do something cool as well. Then they do something, and like, oh yeah, we're allies, woohoo! I get to do something cool. And then at the end, it's like, well, if I do that, we're both getting something. But if I betray them right now, I'm going to get something really good. Boom! Then they're not going to want to ally with you next time, so you start that. You kind of need someone to do that early, or not early, but round one betrayal to really spice the game up, because then it means, oh, I'm not sure I want to ally with them, and then it really starts going. Without that, I do find that sometimes it's just like, yeah, we'll team up, and then the same players team up for the whole game. But Rising Sun, for the minis, for that sort of interesting twist on alliances, for that weird battle system where behind your screens you're bidding on stuff, it's a lot of fun. That's Rising Sun. My number 44 is a board game or a card game that I would recommend to anyone that's trying to get into the hobby, that wants something just a little bit, maybe family weight-ish plus. And I say that because Point Salad is a brilliant, easy to teach and play game, but if you can see how the game plays, which is why I think it's a good sort of entry level, maybe slight stepping stone game, because if you can see, right, if I can get these point scoring cards and take these vegetables from the market, I'm going to score a lot of points. Now, some people can just see that from their very first game. A lot of gamers can. But when you're introducing it to brand new players, sometimes they do just go, all right, I'm going to just collect a load of the tomatoes, maybe a couple of the peppers, and then they're missing out on some of the point scoring cards. It's like, you really should have taken that point scoring card because it would have really worked with what you've got. But after a game, they're easily going to be able to see that again. Now, what I find interesting about this one is the way it's slightly annoying. You have to create a deck depending on the player count. But there is that perfect player count of, I think it's 3, where you can play with half the deck and then play another game straight away with the other half of the deck that you've sort of split out, and they're perfectly stacked for 3 players in both games. So you've got like 2 completely different games. You know the scoring cards are going to be different. I'm not at the level where that matters because, oh, I remember that point scoring card's not going to be in the deck, so I'm not going to go for tomatoes this time. No one's at that level that I play with, so it's a lot of fun to be able to do that. And it's a really simple choice on your turn. Do I take 2 vegetable cards of the salad cards from the market, or do I take a point scoring card? Does that point scoring card screw me over later because it means I can't take any lettuces? Oh no! Doesn't matter though. Maybe I can avoid the lettuces, but maybe at the end of the game I'll get left with them. It's a lot of interesting choices in Point Salad. Anyone can play it pretty much, but to play it well, I think you need to have at least played it once or played something really lightweight. And that's Point Salad, a great entry, stepping stone-ish sort of game. My number 43 is a fantastic new imagining on Pictionary. And this is, if you haven't guessed it, Doodle Rush. I've talked about it a number of times on some of my top 10s and stuff like that. And that is because Pictionary as a concept I really like. However, it's sort of quite long, it gets a little frustrating. Why not condense all that down into under 10 minutes? Because it's literally like 6-7 minutes of playtime, and within 10 minutes you could have taught the game, played and packed it up pretty much. Normally you end up laughing at the end, so it goes over that. But in this game you are given 2 cards, each will have 3 words on. You'll have 6 tiles and a pen. Everyone is going to have that though, and it goes in sort of 2 lots of phases. So it goes draw, guess, draw, guess, draw, guess. But in each draw phase, you can draw as many of the words as you want, or if you or as you can almost. So you're rushing to try and draw each of these words so they are guessed. Because at the end of the game, you'll score points for the ones that you've guessed, but you'll lose points for the ones that haven't been guessed of yours. So it's got this minute of frantic drawing, then there's a minute of frantic guessing, but everyone's shouting about everyone else's sort of tiles that have been drawn. So you're shouting across like, bicycle, bicycle, and they're like, no. And you're like, what? That's clearly, but then someone else is guessing one of yours and you're like, yes, yeah, that's right. Ice cream, yes, that's right. It's sort of so perfectly quick and frantic and super simple and easy to teach, to play. It's, well, why would you ever play Pictionary when you can play Doodle Rush? And that's why it's in my top 100 and it's this high up, because it's fast, frantic fun that just is doodling and easy. That's Doodle Rush. My number 42, I don't know if it's going to stay this high, and that's because a sequel dual version has come out, and that is Splendor. Splendor is a fantastic engine building game. On your turn you can take some of the gem tiles, or you can reserve a card from the market and take a gold. Gold is effectively wild. Then on another turn you can try and use your gems to buy cards either that you've reserved or from the market and play in front of you. Some of those cards are going to have points, and some of those, or all of the cards though, will give you a gemstone reduction in price. So it means if I've got 2 of the blue gemstone cards played in front of me, every card in that market I can do a 2 blue reduction on the cost. So overall you can, so there's multiple routes to victory. Either grab all the tokens you need, spend them on something big, get loads of points because it's the first, I think it's 15 or 20. You get there and you've won, right? So you're trying to get these cards played, these big cards played. But the other route to victory is if I get lots of the little ones, the no scoring point cards, at some point I will be able to just, without going to that gem market, go, yep, I can afford that card for free because I've got these gems here. My next turn, I can have that card for free because I've got these 2 reds and these 3 black cards here. Done. And all of a sudden, your engine is really ticking. So there is that perfect transition point of, if you're building your engine like that, when do you stop going for those and when do you start taking point scoring cards? If you're going for the, let's go through that gem market, okay, if I can't get those gems, what am I going to do? How am I going to get around the problem? And it's sort of, when do I stop buying crap cards before I go for the good ones? And that's the perfect engine building goodness of, when does my engine work well enough for me to try and go for the win? And that's Splendor. Now, why I say it could go lower is I'm rather enjoying Splendor Duel, and because that's at 2 player, it's easier for me to get to the table. I could see that sort of coming up and Splendor sort of shrinking off because I don't play it as much. But for now, at least, it's a great game. Highly recommend Splendor. And the last game on the list today, number 41, is a racing game where you are playing cards that move not only yourself, but other people around the track. You've also bid on your cars in Downforce. Now, this is a restoration games thing. I've not played what the game was originally based upon, but Downforce is sort of their reimagining of that game. I don't know what that was, but this is a fantastic game. Effectively, you start by bidding on the cars. The cars not only are in the sort of a starting order, so some are maybe a little bit closer to the start line than others, but more importantly, they come with a power. Maybe that's if you stop on a straight line space, you can move forward 1 more. Maybe it's when someone else is playing a card that moves you, you move it for them rather than the other way. And there's many different powers because of the expansions and stuff now. But even the base game with the base boards, fantastic. throw in the fact that there's expansions with more racetracks and more powers and stuff, makes it even better. So on your turn, you're playing this card, and maybe it's got 3 different cars that move, including, hopefully, your one. Now, that's not always the case, so what? But why would you ever play a card that's not got your car on it? Well, you can, at times, have moved the cars, or the cars have been moved by someone else, into sort of a bit of a traffic jam. And it means, well, if I play this card now, blue can't move forward. Orange can't move forward. And yellow, well, they can move 1 space forward, but this was a 6 movement for yellow. That's wasting a lot of their movement, and it gets that card out of my hand. I'm not going to have to play it later when they're going to bound on a lot further than I would. Now, okay, it's not moved me forward, but it has maybe stopped them getting to the finish line, because not every car is going to finish in this. And what the twists are, there's 3 yellow lines on the track. When the first car crosses those, everyone is going to bid on who they think is going to win the race, or at least come 2nd and 3rd. The 2nd yellow line, same again. 3rd yellow line, same again. So you don't need your car to actually even finish the race in this game to be able to win, because your bids of who you think's going to win could come through and win it for you. It's an interesting one where you can have more cars in the race but lose because even though they came first, you've spent too much on them and stuff like that through that early bidding phase. There's a lot of interesting sort of bits to it. It takes a few minutes to teach because of those multiple steps, but then as soon as the race gets going, it's so much fun moving the cars, trying to make sure that the other people's cars get blocked in unless you've bidded highly on them, said every yellow line, they're going to be the winner. Maybe you want them to get across the line quickest. So a lot of good fun. That's Downforce. And that wraps up today's lot of 10. Fantastic games in my opinion, but what do you think? Let me know in the comment section below what one of these games deserves to be higher, what game doesn't deserve to be on the list. Let me know in the comment section below, and please subscribe for the rest of the top 100.